This meeting
Fabulous.
is being recorded.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone. Great to see all of you here. Didn't know how many we'd get today with it being sort of summer holidays, so quite a good turnout. So this morning we have got a guest speaker who you've just seen log on. So that's Jonathan Toy, who is the Service Manager for Trading Standards and Community Safety at Warwickshire County Council. So I'm going to hand over quite quickly to Jonathan so that you can make a start, and then after the presentation, I'm sure you'll be happy to take questions, won't you, Jonathan? Yeah, fab. Okay,
yep,
so over to you then, Jonathan. If you've got any questions, you're more than welcome to put them into the chat, or you can wait until the end and then just raise your electronic hand. And also, I should have said, it's great to see some new faces. Welcome, Caroline from Stratford-upon-Avon Town Council. And if there's anybody else new on here, then welcome to the Clerks Operational Meetings. Okay, Jonathan, thank you.
Thank you. Really nice to speak to you all. As has been said, I'm Jonathan Toy. I'm Service Manager for Trading Standards and Community Safety. I've worked in the field of community safety for over 20 odd years, and my passion has very much been around how we work across different agencies to prevent serious violence, and I think I've become a bit of an expert in that field. I've also worked with many young people, many young adults, many families who've been affected by serious violence and helped them navigate different pathways out. We've been working within the Safer Warwickshire Partnership Board, which is a kind of county-wide board where all the partners come together to develop a serious violence strategy. That's been our work really over the last year or so, to get the kind of right balance in terms of how we prevent serious violence in the county. And Elizabeth, who's on the call today, is your representative on the Safe Warwickshire Partnership Board, and suggested that I came and talk to you about the work we're doing and share some of our challenges, but most importantly, have a real open dialogue with how parish and town councils can help us on this journey. Because if we're going to make real long-term effective change, it has to be done starting at a very local community level. That's not just a statement that's coming from me. That's a statement that comes from many, many other violence reduction units and practitioners across the whole of the country, those who've led on this work for so many decades. I've got some slides I'm going to go through with you just to set out why this is currently important and why it's important to Warwickshire. I hope the slides work. If they don't, I'll just have to hum most of them, which is a really bad look on my part. So let's see if I can get the slides up and share the slides with you if I can. I'm not great on doing it on Zoom, so but let's see where we get to. If anybody can help me on the sharing.
Yeah, if you just click on the share screen at the bottom of
your
and then it'll bring up a box with all of your screens that you've got open. So you need to click on the one you want to share and then click share on the bottom right.
Okay, at the moment it's only showing me a picture of yourselves.
Right,
so...
do you have your slide presentation open?
I do. Yep.
Okay, so you've clicked the share screen button.
Yep.
Yeah, so you've only got one screen, which is pictures of all of us, yeah?
Yeah.
You've scrolled down, there's no other screens on there?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Just double check your slides are open on another window.
They are definitely open.
Okay, Alison, are you available?
Yes. Can you upload the presentation?
Oh, hang on. It's gone to. I might have it now. There's Let's see if this works. I think I might have fixed it.
Yay! There we go.
Does that work for you?
Lovely job.
Excellent. Let's go from the beginning of the slides and see where we can go from there.
Perfect.
So, why do we need a long-term approach So to start with, the Police and Crime Sentencing and Courts Act, now it was a bill, but it was enacted actually not a very a short time ago in April of this year, sets out a statutory duty across a range of different partner agencies to work together and to develop plans to prevent violence within their area. And that duty falls on a range of different organisations and bodies, and not the normal ones we'd find within the crime and disorder field in terms of a statutory duty. It also includes our colleagues in health trusts, educational representatives, as well as local councils, youth offending teams, police. And what we've been working to do is develop that strategy that sets out what that response looks like, and what the context as to why and what we will focus on, which I'll talk about in a few moments. What the Act actually also adds is a requirement to undertake serious weapon homicide reviews. So anybody who is aged 18 or older, who is murdered by the use of a weapon, and that weapon is fairly broad in its terminology. So it doesn't necessarily just include gun, or knife, etc. It could include other weapons as well. That a review has to take place in terms of how the agencies have responded to what the background is, so that we can actually start to learn some lessons from those. And those homicide reviews, serious weapon homicide reviews, will start to come in from early next year. We're working with our colleagues in West Midlands Violence Reduction Unit to shape how those reviews will take place in our region. We've done some work in terms of defining what we mean by serious violence, and we very much looked at a relatively broad range of issues. County lines, which I'll describe in a few moments, is particularly important for us within Warwickshire. Any weapon related violence, including corrosive substances. We've had incidents where corrosive substances have been used in terms of threats and intimidation between groups or between individuals. How we define street gangs, which again I'll explain and talk through with you, and social media as well. Lots of the issues we deal with within the field of serious violence prevention is driven through disputes, feuds, basically disagreements that are played out through social media, and then end up in extremely violent acts, and unfortunately in some instances a life is taken. So there's a lot of work that we're doing in terms of that social media space. But we have also included domestic abuse. Of all the violence figures within Warwickshire, domestic abuse is without question the largest proportion. Over 1 in 5 incidents of violence is domestic related, and it's really important that we include that. And there are some other reasons why domestic abuse is important, which again I will talk to you about through these slides. And we've also included sexual abuse as well, because we know that coercive, controlling sexual behaviour, exploitation can, in terms of between individuals, can have a really big impact on that. And there's lots of research in terms of sexual abuse and the wider violence agenda. We want to look at our approach through the lens of contextual safeguarding. I hope that is a familiar phrase to a number of you, but just to explain what contextual safeguarding is. Contextual safeguarding looks at the lives of a person who may well be caught up in violent behaviour, disruptive behaviour, being threatened or intimidated, or caught up in drug-related county lines. And it looks at them in terms of their journey as an individual, the impacts on them within their family, within their peer group, their ability and attainment levels in school, and also in terms of the wider community as well. By looking at at the risk and protective factors through each of those lenses, we can have a much better understanding of what would actually work in helping that person, that family, even that group move away from that lifestyle. And it's a really important approach to us. We're doing a lot of work on that, and I'm very, very happy to offer further training on how contextual safeguarding works, if that would be useful to any members of the town or parish councils. It's a really good model and something that's really important to us. So that's absolutely the heart of what we talk about, and our approach. As I said earlier, county lines is a really big feature for us. Levels of violence within Warwickshire remain very, very low compared to other areas of the country. We're one of the lowest in the country in terms of knife crime, gun-related incidents. However, we are a net importer of county lines, and a number of areas across Warwickshire are impacted, quite severely impacted, by county lines running from Coventry, the West Midlands, London, Manchester, and even farther afield than that. Running lines into areas and exploiting young people, vulnerable adults in the criminal exploitation of drug markets. Originally within Warwickshire, the lines would be run directly from the areas I've mentioned. They would courier drugs in, move them around, and then move on to the next area fairly quickly. However, the model of county lines is to identify people who can run the lines locally on behalf of those criminal networks, either by taking over somebody's address or by exploiting those young people or those young adults to run the lines for them. And that has been very much a feature in a number of our areas, particularly around Leamington and Stratford, Nuneaton, Bedworth, and Atherstone as well. Rugby is a different picture. Rugby has got more established connections with known organised groups or gangs that run their own networks, but they still have connections with other parts of the West Midlands area, and particularly links within Coventry. When we started lifting the lid on how many county lines were operating within Warwickshire, we discovered that there were on average between 12 and 15 lines operating at any one time. And we have a fortnightly meeting that we're organised in with the police and other partner agencies around where those lines are operating, how we deal with them, and how we start to dismantle them. That's a really important part of the work we're doing around our serious violence prevention. But every time we go in and dismantle those lines where we find that we've got vulnerable people or young people involved in them, we also have to devise the interventions that can help them move away from that lifestyle as well. Otherwise, they just gravitate to other disruptive, violent conflicts and feuds. And this issue over conflict, feud, territory-based arguments and disrespect is absolutely at the heart of a number of some serious issues that we deal with almost on a daily basis within some parts of Warwickshire. The illegal economy, the drug markets I've just mentioned are a big part of that. But what those drug markets do is they build on those disrespects and territory-based issues that we see, and this is where often the violence actually starts playing out on our streets. We've had a good example will be some issues we've had up in the north of the county, again up in Nuneaton and Bedworth, where we've seen group on group violence driven by personal conflicts and disrespect. Territory based because it's actually across different areas. Sometimes it's between different people at different schools, but very much with the illegal economy sitting behind the scene on it. And this is a really important piece of work for us, because our approach, our interventions are being built around how we deal with those disrespect issues and how we de-escalate the violence between those groups or those individuals before it spills over and the ultimate happens, which I'm afraid we've seen in other parts of the country. So this is a really, really important piece of work and a really important slide for us in terms of where our focus is. We've done a lot of research on what lies behind why people get involved in serious violence. We've done a lot of data research in terms of behavioral issues, connections to certain types of crime, but also things like exclusion data, absence data, housing data in terms of safeguarding as well. And we've mapped that across the whole of the county to pull out areas where we've seen where we think that there are emerging issues and trends that actually those underlying trends create an environment where violence and conflicts can actually take hold. And we're using this data very much to think about how and where we design our services. But there are some interesting dynamics which I will talk about perhaps after these slides as well, because this is not all about issues within deprived areas. And we are actually seeing a range of people getting involved in county lines and violent conflicts from different socio-economic backgrounds. That's a very pertinent conversation to the south of the county in some of the cases, some of the individuals that we're currently working with. We have common risk factors. These are the things that we see regularly in the background of the people we're working with. We're working with now around about 40 people who've been referred to us in terms of from different agencies who need support or interventions to reduce that risk of violent conflict. And these are some of the commonalities in terms of the backgrounds that we're seeing within those cases. And as I said earlier, domestic violence is a constant theme that comes out within those cases, in those studies. Not only is it the highest level of recorded incidents of violence within the county, but when you look at the background, domestic violence, violence within the family home still stands out as one of the highest factors that we're then trying to work with and unpick. Only just followed by experiences and witnessing other violence between groups or within communities. There's some really interesting things that have come out in this case study research. One of those I regularly highlight is the impacts of chronic ill health within families or bereavement. Quite often, the emotional focus of the family is dealing with that chronic ill health or that bereavement with that loss, and sometimes the emotional support for the people we're working with isn't always as strong as it could be, and we are finding that in about 1 in 3 cases that we're looking at the moment that chronic ill health and bereavement is a feature. And that's some work we want to do with some of our counselling services and improving the offer we have around that. I won't dwell too much on our vision. It very much goes back to what I've been saying through this presentation. This is all about how we work together. It's about how we tackle the causes as well as the impact of serious violence. And it's very much around how we work locally in local areas to break that cycle. Because we do find, sadly, that sometimes the challenges we have become intergenerational, not just a moment in time issue. So our purpose is really to work within local communities about how we create an environment where that cycle can be broken. And this is our model. This is really at the heart of what we're trying to do. We're trying to get in early, work at a very local community level, to actually prevent violence before it happens, develop programs, identify people locally who can be voices and offer opportunities so that actually people are aware of the choices, the consequences, and also the way out. We have to respond to the immediate risk. I've shared with you some of the challenges we have around county lines and what that's doing in terms of increasing group on group violence and intimidation. And we're working really hard with our partners in the police, children's services, criminal justice agencies, in terms of how we immediately respond to that and strengthening that response across agencies, so it's not seen as singly a policing matter. And then finally, how we actually develop a much longer term process and embedding our response at a community level. This is our biggest challenge of all. We're starting from a pretty low level in Warwickshire. We haven't had the same level of investment at community levels that other parts of the country have seen. So we're really having to think about how we go out and identify people who can really influence in a local level and can be part of our family in helping to develop programs that can have a long-term support. I won't go into too much detail on this. This is a really detailed slide on what we look at on that contextual safeguarding conversation I mentioned earlier across the individual, family, peer group, schools, community and society, and look at the different risks that that could be prevalent, but we also look at the protective factors. So quite often we're trying to find interventions that build on the protective factors in somebody's life, rather than trying to address the risks, because our focus on the risks often doesn't have the results that we're looking for. And this slide just really combines all those things I've been talking about, how we look at those risk and protective factors, our model in terms of early prevention, responding, and a longer term change, and how we can draw people into that conversation about how do we collaborate, how can we co-produce programs that will make a difference, and how can we get the community on board, that community consensus, in terms of those local areas and hyperlocal areas to make a difference. Our strategy is a bit different. We've actually used a real life story or combination of stories to talk about why, to really expose some of the challenges we've got. And I'm sure if Elizabeth's happy, I can share with you the strategy. You can read that story, but it really brings to life some of the challenges that many of our clients we're working with are absolutely facing. And I know that it's really hit a chord with a lot of professionals when they've read the strategy about actually just how really important it is when you start reading those real life stories, and just the kind of difference we can start recognizing we can all make within this. The programs we're looking to develop, we're investing very heavily in mentoring. There's some very good models around the country. We want to build a Warwickshire mentoring program. And what we want to do is we want to identify people locally who can join us and become part of our mentoring scheme. So actually, they can help influence within their community, their own local areas. We've got some good people who've already come forward to join us on that journey. And in fact, some of the clients we're working with at the moment are going to be mentors of the future for us, which is going to be really, really positive. And we're already seeing the progress that some of those people are already making. We're doing a lot of work in schools. We're working with 15 secondary schools across the county at the moment, developing programs with them, offering one-to-one support with them, bringing in a specific mentoring program in schools as well to actually get young people to help to de-escalate potentially violent situations within the school environment. We're doing a lot of work on identity and supporting parents to understand the importance of identity. We're rolling out training so that people can identify the signs and symptoms as to why people get caught up in violence, some of the commonalities in language, and also where to signpost. Very importantly, employment is a massive issue for us. We really want to strengthen our employment offer or our offer of skills and development, vocational work, even work experience. A lot of the young people, young adults that we talk to still don't feel that they have the employment opportunities available to them. And we really, really do want to strengthen that. And you won't be surprised to hear me say, because of the issues we've been talking about how we have to get our offer much better in terms of health and well-being, because of those deep-seated trauma and adversity issues that we're seeing within our clients. We would really like Walk to help play a part with us in shaping our delivery plan. We've written the strategy. We're looking now to start to put some meat on the bones in terms of those programs, those 3 levels of the approach around prevention, responding, and a long-term approach. And it would be great to have you on board in terms of helping us shape that. We do think there's a massive opportunity to work with you on looking at those employment opportunities. It's been a big ask of us. We're regularly saying to councillors when we talk to us, if you don't do one more thing than for us to help us this week, go and find a business who would offer a young person some work experience or an employment opportunity. Just one business, because that one business could make an absolute life-changing difference to some of those people we're working with. And I know within your areas you will have businesses, or you might have connections with bids if you're within a town council that could actually help open some of those doors for us. It is really important. And we would really like to work with you about how we could identify local people to become those local voices to help disrupt violence or become community mentors. We're planning a big conference on the 13th of October, and we'd really like to invite you to that. We can send out more details if you're interested, and join us on that journey. I know I've talked for quite a lot, and I apologise for that, but I hope that's been really helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. I found that really interesting and really useful. We would absolutely be delighted to be a part of this as well. So we'd be delighted if you can share details of the conference, and if I can be there, then I absolutely will. I think there are lots of opportunities for parish and town councils to get involved. This doesn't just apply to Warwickshire, because I'm mindful today that we do have some councils on from the West Midlands, and similar schemes will be working there as well. So we will find that information and feed that back to you. I think it's something I haven't floated yet, but I'll float it now. So this is something that I feel quite passionate about. I feel quite passionate about the younger generation. And whilst yet we can look for businesses to see if there are opportunities there, have we not got opportunities within what we're doing within the sector for these young people? Can we not look into, apprenticeships or certainly work experience within these councils? There will be something that you can get these people doing. The kind of work that our clerks do, there are so many skills that these people could then take from that to progress onto something else. I'm a big advocate for youth councils, but this I feel is something that should be taken back to all councils and be discussed, be an agenda item and be discussed. How can you be involved? Because what Jonathan's just gone through, I mean, it's really serious, isn't it, Jonathan? And when children get involved in county lines, once they're involved, it's very difficult to get out of that then, isn't it, Jonathan, without serious sort of impact, not just to that child, but to the family as well. This is really, organised crime that is really serious. So I think it's something that we should be looking at as a sector. We should be looking, those councils that have facilities, maybe they can offer that safe place for the mentors to do some work with these people as well. They're my thoughts, Jonathan, initially, and I'd be happy to work this up with you and put this out to all of our members.
I feel your passion. I think there's so much we could discuss on that, but everything you said I completely agree with. I do a lot of work with town councils, parish councils, and you're absolutely right, there's massive opportunities. And I think sometimes providing an opportunity where young people can lift the lid on just how much great work town and parish councils can do would surprise them. I think it really does. And
who's better placed to you know, to do this. You know, parish and town councils are the closest people to the communities. You know, and spreading the word, spreading the message, because I do think some of it comes down to that education of parents as well. You know, I've got an 8-year-old, and there are some times where I miss things and I think, gosh, you know, should have seen that coming. So I think, you know, that's having that support out there, and I think parish and town councils can be feeding this back and spreading the word and sending out those messages. I think there's a lot we could do, Jonathan, but I'll shut up now.